Hi, this is Sara Levin, the Artful Inker, an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I've got an In Symmetry double diamond fold card to share with you. Let me set this aside and we'll get started. For this card, we're going to be using the In Symmetry bundle, which includes the In Symmetry stamp set and the symmetrical stems punch. It's a border punch. Let me set these aside and bring in a piece of basic white for stamping. And I'm going to start with Night of Navy and the largest bloom in the In Symmetry stamp set. There's a lot of surface area, so I want to take my time in both inking it so it has time to pick up the ink and leaving it on the paper so it has time to transfer all that ink. So again, let's rub. And I'm going to stamp 5 of these, so I'm going to speed up the video here. As you can see, I stamped a 6th one because as I went along, the stamp picked up the ink better. So this one won't make it to our final project, and that's okay. So next, I've got Flirty Flamingo ink, and I'm going to stamp one of the smaller flowers, and I want 3 of those. Okay, and let me close up my Flirty Flamingo ink and put it out of the way. And next is Just Jade. And I'm going to use this same block and put this double leaf on here. And you can see that it's a little wide. And what I really want is to squish this together so that that space doesn't really exist in there. Okay, and 1 set of leaves, and then let's close this and pull my Night of Navy back in, and I'm going to stamp our sentiment in Night of Navy. So I'm not squishing down on the ink pad, just rubbing my finger across. Okay, so let's close this up. I'm going to cut all of these out. This is cutting with your paper snips, and this one I'm going to use a die for, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I've got my stamped pieces cut out, and then I used the Stitch So Sweetly die, one of them, to cut out our sentiment. I'm just going to set those pieces to the side, and now we're going to begin to create our card base. So let me bring in my trimmer and pull out the arm here. I've got a piece of Flirty Flamingo. Now for all of these measurements, I have a PDF that you can download on my blog. That'll make sure that the measurements are correct versus what I may tell you while I'm trying to create and talk. So let me score. You can see the process here. Sometimes I find that is extra helpful when you're doing a more involved kind of card. I don't want to say hard because the card isn't hard. And then we're going to take this back out here, and on the PDF it'll tell you to make some tick marks, and you're going to do that in this first section. So let me tick here and tick here. And then I'm just going to flip this around, and we're going to put those same tick marks on the other end in the first section, just making sure I'm lined up and that I'm butted up against the top here so that it'll be straight. And tick here. Okay, and then we're going to score diagonally. So got to think here. So I'm going from the second score line to the tick mark up here. Okay. And then I'm going to turn that and put my other score line in. So the top of that score line now, and the tick mark that's down at the bottom. And then we're going to flip that around and do that over here on this other side. So corner to tick mark. And then, well, my tick mark's at the top, so we'll leave it there. So corner is here, tick mark is here. And okay, and let's turn this now to portrait, and we're going to put in 2 more tick marks. Let me make sure I'm doing the scoring blade and not the cutting blade, both top and bottom. And then we're going to turn this so that we can cut from that end of one of the diagonal score lines to the tick mark. And turn this and put the other end of the score line and the tick mark. Okay, and that gives us our diamond point. And now let's do the other end. Make sure I can see my tick mark. So we're lining the corner of the diagonal and the tick mark. And last one, diagonal and tick mark in the track. Okay, so let's set this piece aside for a moment and we'll do some of our designer paper. So let's fold this in. We don't need quite as much trimmer for this next couple of steps. I've got some of the Sweet Symmetry designer paper, and we're going to add our tick marks to that. Just have to think about where our measurements are. So make sure I'm butted up against the end. And again, I'm going to tick top and bottom. And then I'm going to turn this to landscape and have to think about where my measurement is. I don't do a lot of measuring in 16ths. And then I'm going to turn this over to this side because it's just a little easier for me to see the tick marks and make sure that they're in the track. So we're going to cut this way, and then let's put the tick mark here. Make sure we keep this one in the track here. And our point here is pretty much the tick mark now. Okay, and one more cut. We'll go point to point. Okay, so this piece is cut. So I'm going to do that with the other piece, and I'll be right back. And then for our last piece of Sweet Symmetry designer paper, we're just going to put opposite corners in the track. Just making sure I'm lined up here. Okay, and I like to start my blade just inside of that point so that I'm not bending the point as I cut, since it's such a small edge. And then I'm going to try and keep these two pieces pretty much together and just rotate them around to this other corner. Okay, same thing. Let's put my piece down. I need to rotate that just a smidgy and make sure they're both in the track. Okay, so I'm going to cut up and then down, and now I've got 4 pieces. These 2 are going to get set aside. This one I'm going to put up here, put the point in the track, and do the same thing just to cut it in half. And then I'm going to put my straight edge of the triangle up here and cut, just looking at my markings over here, so that I cut the right amount off. And this will make our triangles the right size. Some of them, so that you can put that flat end at the top, you're going to have to turn to the back side of the designer paper, but that's okay. In the end, it all works out so that we're using the correct side of the designer paper for our project. So let's cut these last 2. Sorry, I'm just double checking. You know that old saying, measure twice, cut once. Making sure that I'm on the right marking. I'm measuring to the right of the track for these cuts. And now we are ready to assemble. So let me pick these pieces up off my trimmer and put my paper trimmer out of the way and bring my base in. And we're going to start by burnishing score lines. Doing the diagonals here. And then I'm just going to bring this one forward for the time being, just so that I can burnish that. Okay, and now let's do this other one and burnish our folds. Okay, and then we need to crease this piece right here. Okay, and before we go any further, I'm going to put our center pieces on here. So I've got some basic white, and let's go ahead and add that to the middle. I've cut it just a little bit wide, so let me bring my trimmer back in. Should have measured twice for this as well, apparently. So I'm just going to cut 1/8 of an inch off and pull that out. Let's move this to the side now. And then I want to cut the same. I'm going to need to trim the back of this piece as well, or the piece for the back. Okay, and this is where you will write your message. So if you're making this card and you're going to use it, you may want to write your message on here first before adhering it. Okay. And then next we're going to take this piece of Sweet Symmetry designer paper in the Just Jade print on the front and add that to nearish the bottom of our front panel. Okay, and then let's begin to add our diamonds and just checking to make sure. So I need to make a slight adjustment, and I'm going to do that with my paper snips. As you can see, I'm just cutting off a very fine amount, and you may need to do that. It's hard to get the diamonds perfect, and you don't want them to cross that score line there. So let's add this. And it's more important that the outside edge have an even border so that it looks nice, because you're not really going to see that inside edge as much. Okay, and then let's take this one and see how we do for fit here. So I need to do a little bit of trim down this side. Okay, and then let's check it. Okay, and we're ready to adhere. Make sure that your pattern is facing not only the side of the pattern that you want to use, but if it's directional like this is, that you've got it right side up. And I'm just scooting that into place. Okay, so then we're going to place our triangles in. And this is not a directional print. Let me check and make sure. Okay, that I've measured correctly, but we want to make sure that those are going to fit. Okay. Now, if you're using a directional print, then you'll want to do two separate pieces to do your diamonds. So that your print will all be headed in the right direction. Okay. Okay, so let's push this piece forward. And then those will fold. Okay, so now let's decorate our pieces further. These pieces that we cut off when making that diamond, and I'm just going to make a slight adjustment here with my scissors and see. Oops. Let's bring that up, and we're going to fill this space. I'm going to start here in the center, so that point is in the right place. Okay, and then we've got one more for this other side. Let's check the fit. And again, I need to do the same thing. Just take a little bit off the front. It's a little more forgiving, in my opinion, than cutting straight up the back. Let's see if that does it. That'll make our fit. Okay, and now we're ready to adhere our stamped pieces. So let me close this just a minute. And we're going to use 2 of these together over on this piece. So let me adhere them together first. So I'm going to put just a dot of glue here in the center, and then line up my pattern from the stamping so that they look more like one piece, and put that down. Let me hold that a moment. And now I'm going to turn that over and add some adhesive and adhere it to our card. Okay, right in here. And we're going to come all the way out to the edge here and not cross the score line over on the left. And then in the center, I'm going to add one of these flowers in the Flirty Flamingo. And just trying to make sure I've got it pretty well centered. Okay, let's build this over on the other side. Same thing. So let's put this down and layer this up. Okay. Add a little, just a dot of adhesive here. And then add this one on so that it looks like it's part of the same flower and not like we're doing what we're doing. Okay, and then turn this over. And again, we're going to adhere as far out to this edge so that we're not crossing the score line. I'm just checking that now. And then let's add another one of these. And I am checking this center design to make sure that I've got it so that it looks like it's straight up and down and also then centered on our blue flower. Okay, let me close this just a moment. Okay, then we're going to add our sentiment at the top with dimensionals. And that way we'll get our spacing right for our last bit of decoration. Let me take my hands away and check to make sure that's centered. I'm just a little far left. So that looks good. Okay, so now we're going to add this flower. And I'm going to add this to the center. And this is going to be more of an arrangement than the same flower that we've got going over here. Okay, so now, and last, I've used that symmetrical stems punch that I showed you at the beginning on some of the Just Jade designer paper pattern from the In Symmetry. So let's move our leaves under here, and I want to adhere them first. So let's, there we go. Making sure that we stay inside the score lines. And then I'm going to add a couple of dimensionals on the back side of our flower here. But before I adhere it, I would like to put these two in, and that way I'm not fighting with my dimensionals. So I'm going to hold them together and add a little bit of adhesive on the back in a couple of places. And then stick those in back here. Make sure they're pulled out enough that we get the joy of them. Okay. And there we go. That's the front of our card. And here, let me pull this together. And so it looks like this. You can't really see what it looks like standing. I'll have photos for that over on my blog, along with those measurements that I mentioned at the beginning. Of course, if you're in the United States, please do some of your Stampin' Up! Shopping in my store. There's a link for that in the description below. You can give this video a thumbs up and share it with your card-making friends. And when you subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell, you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Have a great day. Bye.